One of the most exciting developments this week is a potential breakthrough in the Switch 2's NVMe storage mode project. You may recall that NVNT Labs has been working on a microSD Express to NVMe adapter for the Switch 2, aiming to let us plug in an M.2 SSD via the console's microSD Express slot. The big hurdle has been the initial handshake between the Switch 2 and the adapter. Early attempts failed with an SD card error 2016 string 0641 whenever the NVMe SSD was inserted. In other words, the console wasn't accepting the DIY storage expansion due to timing/voltage negotiation issue on the microSD Express interface. Now this week, a solution emerged. An independent team posted that they've successfully connected an NVMe drive through microSD Express by using a custom hardware approach. Now, according to their report, they outline the challenges of doing this with a simple microcontroller and explain how a dedicated hardware FPGA method can overcome the handshake problem. Notably, as the SD interface clocks up to higher speeds, the line voltage drops to 1.8 volt, which was part of the issue. Their hardware design handles this properly. This suggests that the community has solved the handshake that was blocking the NVMe adapter. It's a huge step. We might soon see a working Switch to NVMe mod, granting vastly cheaper and faster storage options. The project isn't plug and play yet. It likely involves a custom board or FPGA, but proof of concept has been achieved. We expect NVNT Labs and other modders to build on this and hopefully release a prototype adapter in the near future. For Switch 2 owners, this means internal SSD storage might eventually become a reality, a game changer for loading times and capacity. Coming to homebrew and emulation, the new Citron emulator update. While Switch 2 itself remains locked down, no full jailbreak yet, the Switch homebrew and emulation scene is thriving on other fronts. This week saw a major update to Citron, a popular Nintendo Switch emulator. On November 2nd, the Citron team released version 0.10.0 and it came with significant improvements. According to the official changelog, this update focuses on mobile optimization, input improvements, and critical bug fixes, all while expanding game compatibility and stability. Impressively, Citron's developers have been collaborating with other emulator teams. The update credits contributors from RioJinx and Eden, who helped implemented features like Skyline mode support and fixes for the Mario Kart 8 CTGP DX mode, a popular custom track pack. In short, different Switch emulator projects are sharing code and working together, which means faster progress for everyone. What does this mean for gamers? Essentially, Switch emulation is getting more robust. Citron now runs more games and even supports complex mods, and it's smoothing out online play features and controller support. Notably, the devs overhauled the Windows updater and improved Android performance in this release. The fact that multiple teams, Citron, RioJinx, Kenji, Eden, etc. are cooperating is great news. It shows the community's commitment to open development. We mention this emulator progress because it's very relevant to the homebrew scene. While we wait for Switch 2 to be fully exploitable, enthusiasts can still enjoy Switch titles and mods on PC or Android emulators, keeping the scene alive. It's also a reminder that even without official backwards compatibility on new hardware, the community finds a way either through hardware mods or software emulation. Now, what about Switch 2 hacking itself? At this point, early November 2025, there is still no public kernel level exploit or custom firmware for the Switch 2. The only demonstrated exploit remains the userland WebKit ROP hole that researcher David Buchanan showcased on day 1, which allowed custom graphics in user space. Nonetheless, research continues behind the scenes. There are rumbling on forums about people probing the Switch 2's internals and firmwares for weaknesses. Some speculate a mode chip hard mode might eventually be the only reliable method, similar to the later Switch 1 models. As of now, no mode chip or soft mode is available for Switch 2. Any websites or products claiming so have proven either false or not functional. We will keep following any hints of progress, but for now, the Switch 2 is secure on current firmware. This week, the PlayStation 5 scene got a major breakthrough. Renowned hacker TheFloW publicly dropped a new kernel exploit, cheekily dubbed the Poopsploit, that works on PlayStation 5 system software up to version 20.00 and on PlayStation 4 up to 13.00. This kernel vulnerability was patched by Sony in the latest update, fixed as of PlayStation 5 12.02, but for anyone who hasn't updated past 12.00, it means the door is now open at the kernel level. However, a kernel exploit by itself isn't enough. It needs to be chained with a userland entry point to actually achieve a fully jailbreak. That's where Y2JB comes in. Y2JB, short for YouTube jailbreak, is a userland exploit that uses the PlayStation 5's YouTube app to run custom code. Developers have been hard at work on Y2JB for months, and it's now very close to prime time. Version 1.1 was released recently, and a faster, more stable 1.2 beta is in testing. Y2 Jailbreak essentially allows remote JavaScript code execution with the YouTube's app environment, which can then trigger the kernel exploits payload in memory. In plainer terms, Y2 Jailbreak gives you code execution in user space without needing a pricey game or weird dongle. And from there, TheFlow's kernel hack can take over the system. The PlayStation 5 scene is exploding with activity. One mod on subreddit PlayStation 5 Jailbreak said the progress this year has been exponential and there is plenty more to come. Developers are also exploring other exploit entry points. For example, a project nicknamed Netflix and Hack is attempting a man-in-the-middle trick to inject code via the Netflix app error screen on firmware 5.00 to 9.00. There's even talk of using the game Arcade Spirits, the new challengers, as a future userland exploit, since it's a cheap and available title, unlike the obscure Lua language game used in earlier hacks. On the tools side, we've seen updates to the PlayStation 5 ETA-hen menu, allowing things like on-screen IP display and moving HUD elements, and a new PlayStation 5 game dumper version 1.02 that can fully decrypt game files as it dumps them. The PlayStation 4 isn't left out either. With TheFlow's new kernel exploit, the PlayStation 4 can now be jailbroken on firmware up to 13.00 as soon as a suitable user exploit is paired. You might ask yourself, why share this in a Switch hacking video? Well, it highlights how console hacking is a waiting game of chaining exploits, exactly what we'll likely need for Switch 2 eventually. The PlayStation 5's progress shows that even the most secure system do get opened up with time and collaboration. It's also just exciting news for general homebrew enthusiasts. The fact that the PlayStation 5 is so close to a newer jailbreak means a flood of homebrew mods and maybe even backups on that platform soon. Now, if you have a PlayStation 5 and are interested in modding, the advice is don't update past the vulnerable versions. The PlayStation community is buzzing because some years ago very few people had hopes for a PlayStation 5 jailbreak, and now look at us where we stand at this specific moment. And I just wanted to reflect a similar scenario could play out for the Switch 2 in time. We'll keep an eye on both scenes moving forward. That's all for this week's packed update. We covered a lot of ground, from Switch 2's NVMe mod breakthrough and emulator advances to the still tight security of Nintendo's new console and a detour into the exciting PlayStation 5 jailbreak developments. No fluff, just the facts. Hopefully you feel caught up on everything happening in the console hacking world. As always, stay safe, avoid scams, don't trust any too good to be true mod products, and we'll be back with more homebrew news next week. Happy gaming, don't forget to smile. My name is you. Peace.